Welcome to A-Level Business at Huddersfield New College. Today we are going to be doing a lesson from our spec from 2.3.3 and looking at reasons why businesses fail. And we've got a big question today, which is, what are the true reasons for Misguided's demise? And we're going to be thinking about how much was it down to a lack of competitiveness. So, the first task our students are going to look at today is thinking about factors that might in general lead to both insolvency and businesses' failure, and thinking about who might be most affected by the failure of a business. So, I'd now like you to move across to the whiteboards and as a team see if you can come up with some reasons to address the first two questions.
Yeah. Okay, question A. Identify factors contributing to insolvency and business failure.
Competitors, like too many competitors.
And what's it called? Like poor leadership skills. Could advertising, like bad advertising, bad marketing. Yeah, I'd agree with this. What's the second question? Stakeholders affected by business failure.
You've got the employees straight away.
Shareholders as well.
Yeah.
Employees, shareholders.
Again, competitors.
Yeah, competitors. Well, the business owners as well.
Okay, and maybe now we've got 4 stakeholders, maybe see if we can rank them in order. Who is it going to affect the most if a business fails?
Straight away. Probably employees, right?
Well, yeah,
Because they're going to lose their jobs.
Yeah, and then maybe shareholders.
Well, yeah, there'll be owners as well. Well, I guess, aren't shareholders and owners, they're similar things, aren't they?
I think it depends on the type of ownership. Because if it's a sole trader or partnership, it's business owners, but if it's limited or public,
That's true.
then it's the shareholders.
So maybe put them joint number 2.
Yeah. And then the competitors, they're going to benefit from it. So.
Would the customers ever really lose out?
It depends if they like the brand, how loyal
It depends
they
on how
are.
loyal they are, yeah.
Okay.
So I guess you could put them as well.
And also perhaps you could consider the idea that for some customers, particularly if it's business to business, they might be very reliant on that business in terms of their supply chain. Okay, brilliant. Right, if you want to come and sit back down. So, we've got some good ideas there around business failure. So, we've now got a bit more of an extensive list around the causes of business failure. Now, what I'd now like you to do on your table is have a look at each of the causes of business failure and decide, do you feel they are more internal or external? So if you think that internal, I'd like you to label it with an I. If you think it's external, an E. And if you think it could be both, write a B next to it.
That's internal.
I'd say
I'd say
available talent.
Product management, that's internal. Online
That's
return
definitely internal.
costs.
I'm gonna go external with that
Can
one.
it depend
I
on
don't
But I'm not too
know.
sure.
Online returns.
So that could be both.
External, yeah.
I'll put
Rising costs. That's
Rising.
external, they don't have control.
that could
Pandemic, definitely
Right.
external.
Well, that's kind of
Supply
both because
chain
they're going to
problems.
put the prices up, but then the
Uh,
external is to do
Not
with
external as
inflation.
well.
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's kind of
Yeah.
both.
Economic factors.
Pandemic, that's obviously external.
That's
Supply chain problems.
external.
Is that external?
Yeah.
Because you can't really control.
Inflation's external.
Unless
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
you can
Failure to
because of
innovate,
that.
that's definitely, I'd say that's
You're the
internal.
one who likes
Yeah.
it, so-
Competitive environment,
I think that is external, to be fair.
Yeah.
external.
Yeah.
Economic, that's
External.
external. Inflation,
Stock
external.
shortages,
Failure to
I
innovate,
I think it
that's
could be
internal.
both
Yeah, I
because
was
they
gonna say,
could. Yeah.
both.
Competitive environment.
and a lack of cash, that's...
Well, you sort of put yourself in it.
could you say
That's
that's
what I
both?
thought.
Because if they're
I'd
not
say
getting money into the
external.
business, but if they're handling their
It's
cash
like
wrong,
you don't set up.
Yeah, probably.
I'd say that's
Well, you-
both.
The only others that could be
I
both.
think I put external, to be fair. Stock shortages, that's kind of to do with the supply chain kind of into it. So
Yeah,
it's a bit
that's
external.
Yeah.
But then like
There are a lot of external.
It's
Are we doing that one
it's your
now as well?
responsibility to like
No,
restock.
so what you've done is you've identified your
Yeah.
internal.
do you think it is external stock shortages?
So you could be thinking about holding just-in-time stock, couldn't you, and not holding enough stock,
Yeah.
or it could be a supply chain issue that could be external, that could
So
be
is it
be
both?
caused by wider global issues. So we could say that moment perhaps is
I
both.
do think so. And then that's internal lack of cash because
Okay, so we're just going to have a really quick comparison. Okay, so the blue ones are largely external factors. We've got very few internal factors, and some of them, the green ones, we could perhaps suggest are both, but there could be an argument for a lot of these. So if we think, for example, you were talking about the stock shortages, it could be that we're using a just-in-time system, and that is our choice to operate our stock control that way, and that will bring us lots of benefits. However, as we're seeing at the moment in the global economy, there are lots of supply chain factors that could be out of your hands. So that then comes back to the business. Are they able to adjust the way they handle stock to maybe deal with these different scenarios? Okay, so just going through a few key facts around business failure, and this slide is going to focus a little bit more on small businesses. So often small businesses fail because they run out of cash. Can anyone think of the business term that we've used before to look at not having enough cash to pay your short-term debts?
is it? I was gonna say current liability, but
So your current liabilities are your short-term debts.
Did you say liquidity?
So liquidity. And often it's small businesses that might struggle the most to gain access to things like an overdraft that they might need. Often small businesses fail and large businesses because they don't really understand customer needs, and they might find that their competitors might be better placed in the marketplace. So we've got some wider reasons around why businesses might fail. And as a business, they need to make sure that they understand the context that they operate in. So these are all businesses that we will have known or seen on the high street. Some of them are businesses that have outright failed, and some of them are businesses that have been either rescued or rebranded and taken on by other people. And the business that we're going to think a little bit more today is Misguided, and what's happened to them and why that business has failed. So the key area about what happens next when a business fails is the liquidators have got a number of choices to make. So for example, one of the choices they could do is to sell up all of the assets and from that point pay off any debts that the business has got. What we're seeing more and more often is that people are coming along and buying the brand of that failed business, and then they're then incorporating that brand into their company. So you'll have all recognised House of Fraser and the Fraser Group. These are brands that Mike Ashley, as the Fraser Group, has taken on over a period of time to try to develop his brand portfolio. His most recent one that's really relevant is Misguided. And Misguided failed recently, and Mike Ashley decided to take on the brand and the online presence of that company. So we're now going to talk through the research activity that we set as flipped learning. So I'd like you to grab your article for Misguided, so I know you've got that handy. And one of the tasks I asked you to do to prepare for today's lesson was to think about some of these big questions around Misguided and what's caused them so many problems. And the big question that we're thinking about is how much has a lack of competitiveness had the biggest impact. So I'm going to give you around about 30 seconds just as a table to have a quick discussion about what you found when you read the article.
We found that they failed because of the competitiveness of rivals such as Shein.
And how it affected when lockdown happened. because everyone
Yeah.
wanted different types of clothes compared to when it wasn't around.
Because Shein's pricing is so competitive and they didn't do anything about their pricing, so
They can't compete anymore.
oh.
And I think they're more likely to survive under the new ownership as well, because it's a already established brand.
Exactly.
That's what I got.
And it's got history of success with other companies have taken over.
So, coming back to that, why you think it might survive under Mike Ashley, what do you think Mike Ashley might be wanting to do with the Misguided brand? So do you think he's going to run it exactly as it was, or do you think he's going to want to change things?
Change things.
Yeah,
I'd
probably
say.
change things, because if he didn't change anything, then
It's not going to improve.
no, exactly.
Okay, so he's got House of Fraser, that's his big flagship store now. Do you think he might try to do something with Misguided in terms of House of Fraser?
Probably sell it in there.
So he could perhaps sell it in there, and that would help his other brands as well. So it might attract a slightly different clientele, different target audience. Also thinking about what Mike Ashley has, he's got already a big supply chain, and it might really help him if he's able to move Misguided into as part of that supply chain. So our big question was, is it a lack of competitiveness, or are there other factors that have caused Misguided's failure? So really quickly as a group, I'd like you to come up to a consensus. Do you think Misguided has failed because they weren't competitive, they couldn't compete in the market, or do you think there were other reasons for that? Okay, so 30 seconds just to finish up and just have a quick thought regarding that.
Probably the main reason, but there's
Yeah.
other ones behind it as well. Because I said like spending power, like bills and stuff, costs a lot.
Exactly, with like the cost of living crisis and obviously the pandemic as other external factors, but it is the main one because obviously the rivals like Shein, which is so cheap and they sell such similar styles, obviously they can't compete as much.
Have other businesses struggled in the market recently that are similar?
Yeah, Boohoo, for example, is one of them, which I think it was revealed that profits slumped 94%.
So maybe it's a wider factor. So maybe Boohoo had something about them that enabled them to survive in a slightly different way. They had other factors that were going for them. And one of the key things that the article talks about is their target market, how they've really struggled knowing the target market. And it talks about their key core customers, their spending's down 26%, whereas some of the target market for other brands are only down 11%, and so it's had a much bigger impact. Okay, so we hope you've enjoyed having a look at an A-level business lesson today, and we look forward to seeing you at the college.